Thank you very much for coming along. The more the merrier, if we can drag people in. So I guess this session, for those of you who were around last night, you will see that we've had a number of excellent organisations that have won the ITEC Awards this year. And now is our chance to hear a few words from them, but also to give them a good grilling. So please be gentle, because clearly this is, they haven't been able to prepare anything. So this is a real chance to see if they know what they actually put in their submissions and whether they really are delivering what they said they're delivering. But please be gentle. We're keen to get your questions. You can do that through the technical way via the app, or if you just feel like being an old-fashioned and normal way, we'll get some roving mics around and see if you can throw some questions to our speakers. Just a couple of minutes, just to remind you what you do. So a couple of minutes each around, obviously from the award point of view, what was the service that you've been delivering, how you've developed it, some of the challenges you've overcome, what your advice would be to the audience around whether that be how you've overcome workforce challenges, whether it's a technical challenge, whether it's benefits realisation. So we're keen to hear from you, and then we will then fire some questions at you. So, can I ask David Rees from PA Consulting to come up first, and we'll do a round of applause at the end. Don't worry.
Good go.
Unscripted.
So this is now. I'm going to check. Can you still hear me now? Good. Okay, and I'll try not to shout and deafen you. So the award we won last night in the innovation category was for something called the Wellbeing Automated Call Service, or WACS. That was set against a backdrop of a wider set of technology-enabled care services we provide with local authorities. WACS itself was set against the challenges that many local authorities were facing during COVID and the pandemic, and looking after, supporting and understanding the needs of those that were shielding. In this particular instance, Hampshire had a growing list on the shielded list, eventually got to 50,000 individuals. Every week there were additions to it. They'd stood up a 50-strong call centre, traditional approach for the pandemic response. But it was pretty evident that the ability to try and support the most vulnerable in the community was difficult even in those circumstances. So it was actually the Thursday before Good Friday, and the lead officer said, I need some help with something. I've got to understand and prioritise how I can support these individuals. And we sort of sketched it out that evening. By Easter Monday, we'd put a prototype together, which in essence used Amazon Web Services technology to automate some calls, just to understand people's needs, to prioritise them. So it wasn't about an automated chatbot trying to solve everyone's needs. It was trying to help the officers prioritise and understand those that needed to be seen first. Within 7 days, the service was stood up, and eventually, by the end of the programme, we'd made 200,000 calls at a rate of about 2,500 per day to those, and made the difference of understanding where people needed help with getting prescriptions, needed help with shopping, or dealing with isolation challenges. In terms of Nathan's questions, I would say there were three things for us that were really important. As it is, I think, in any technology-enabled care offering, we started with the outcome. We had a tested and proven platform to use, so that wasn't the question. It wasn't about doing something that was sparkly and glitzy. It was about how do we prioritise and triage those needs. So that was our first starting point. The second was co-production. So we didn't go in with a ready-made solution. We had something, the building blocks in place, but we worked closely with both officers within the services, but also service users. So we had 4 users to start with on the very first day, and we made 4 calls, just to understand that we can put ourselves in the shoes of the service users. Were they concerned about bogus calls? Were they concerned about understanding and being able to communicate with the officers? And the final thing then was, I would say, it was thinking big. We had a big challenge, 50,000 individuals. But thinking big, starting small, and then scaling fast. So we started with a big target. We started initially then building up at about 20 calls a day, to then 20 calls an hour, to then 2,500 calls a day. The irony is the technology could probably do a lot more, but there were certain things we need to be cognizant of without overloading the officers involved. So those are the 3 things. Focus on the outcomes, co-produce, and think big, start small, and scale fast.
Thank you. Yeah, if you go back there and all. So what we'll do is we'll do questions at the end. But thank you very much for David being our guinea pig for the first one. Very well remembered of what you were doing. We'll see how everybody else gets on, and you can try and gauge what time of the evening or morning people got to bed last night, depending on how well they remember what they came up with. So next up, just to remind you, because you haven't got your booklets in front of you, next up was the Workforce Development Award. So can I ask Lisa from Astroline to come up and talk about their work through the pandemic? Thank you.
Hello everybody. So first of all, just about who I am. So my name's Lisa Brunwell. I'm the Operations Director at Astroline. We're a telecare monitoring centre, part of Johnny Johnson Housing. And last night we won the Workforce Development in Tech Award. So some of you may have remembered me. I was the one whose shoe fell apart just as I entered the stage and then completely collapsed as I left the stage. If you didn't notice, then thank you. Please don't say anything about that. So in terms of what we did, I've just jotted down just a few notes. If I go back to March of 2020, as part of Johnny Johnson Housing, we decided we were going to move to agile working. Astroline was always going to be excluded from that. We were a monitoring centre, we needed a home, we were never going to do home working. And then COVID came. And the 23rd of March, I was advised you need to get the whole operation to home working. We can't make the building COVID secure, so you need to move people. So over the course of a week, it was a huge effort, a massive team effort to get over 30 operators to 100% home working. We had no laptops, so people had to come and take the desktops, the screens, take them home and get them set up at home and start working. We also have a tech responder team that still continued to go out to do falls lifting and responding. So we had to make sure that there was PPE available, and if everybody remembers, going back 2 years, trying to get hold of a face mask and gloves was really difficult. So that was another challenge we faced. So everybody took the PCs home, they set the home office set up, and then one of the big things we had to do was recreate that community that you get within an office environment. And what we did was we set up a secure chat room so that people could actually start talking to each other. That was a really big part of what we needed to try and achieve, especially in the early days. If you remember, not only were we going through this at work, but people were going through this with their families as well. People didn't know what was going to happen, children were being sent home from school, so it was really important to us to keep that link with everybody that was suddenly all spread across the northwest area. The challenges, at the same time as that, because we don't like to do just one thing at a time within Astroline, we were also mobilising new contracts. So on the day that we were about to bring in new recruits on the Monday, everybody was sent home on the Thursday beforehand. So we had to move all of our training to online training. So over the weekend, that was a really busy time for our training team, but we did it. We moved the induction online so that everybody could start learning from there. And the other important thing we had to do was to reassure our clients and our customers that we were still there, because again, they were going through changes. Anybody that was working within schemes suddenly were now working from home and not going into schemes. So our role became even more important because we were the link between the customers and the outside world. Our nights team are working from home, and anybody who's worked in a monitoring centre knows that at times there's a lot of shouting down the units to try and see if somebody's there. And that in a home environment can be really challenging because family members were trying to sleep, neighbours were trying to sleep, people were being heard shouting. So that was one of the things. But the other one was probably the isolation of colleagues. That was a really big challenge. We had to work out how we could stop that isolation from getting hold. We also then, as a business, decided we were going to close our existing office that we'd been there for many, many years and move completely. And everybody would start working from home. So that was all fine, but new starters were great. But anybody, again, who's inducted new people, the biggest learning is experience. And in order to do that, you've got to be with colleagues. So we managed to secure a six-seat office, which we could make COVID secure. And we introduced hybrid working. So we had some people working from the office, some working from home. We then had to deploy laptops. Again, anybody trying to buy a laptop 12 months ago, it was very difficult, but we had to secure laptops for everybody. We then started consulting colleagues about how they were finding it. Did they like it? Had they got jaded? Did they want to carry on? From that, then we started to look at how we could make that a future business model and how we could make sure that that could start working. We introduced more proactive calling, and we did lots of assessment levels with colleagues as well, just to make sure that their knowledge and skills were at the standard that we needed to. So just in summary, what have we learned? Where there's a will, there's a way. Anybody telling me that we would have been working from home 2 years ago, I would not have been convinced, but here we are. People are brilliant. So my team were absolutely amazing, and that's every single person within the whole of Astroline. All our colleagues, our clients, our customers were all brilliant. I learnt new things, split shifts and micro shifts. I've never come across that before, but suddenly we had a flexible workforce that could jump onto the calls for 2 hours rather than doing a full 6-hour shift. Mental health is as important as physical health, and we suddenly had to really start understanding how we could ensure colleagues' mental health was kept at the forefront of everything that we did. So just finally, what's next? Well, hybrid's here to stay, but we're now looking at how we can do something different. So now colleagues choosing the shifts that they work from home and the ones that they work in the office rather than ones that we advise them to do. Again, that really gives them flexibility and allows them to have a better work-life balance. And then how do we retain colleagues? You've heard about the great resignation. So how do we make sure that we keep people engaged and keep working within Astroline and build up that knowledge and experience? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And just to remind people to keep thinking of questions for any of our panel, can I move on to our next award, so the Partnerships and Tech Award. So just familiarise yourselves, this was a Progress Lifeline and Northwest Ambulance Service, and Joanne Bushel's going to tell us a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I hope you won't be able to tell how late I stayed out to last night. Right, yes, my name's Joanne Bushel. I'm Head of Operations for Progress Lifeline, which is part of Progress Housing Group. We have a full managed service, telecare, ARC, installers and responder service. Our award was working in partnership with Northwest Ambulance Service. This came about as part of a combined contract with Health and Social. So 7 CCGs and our local county council procured a commission service for a responder and falls and lift service. And we were successful in winning that contract. Part of the collaboration with the Northwest Ambulance Service was challenging, full stop, from the process through. We had lots of different challenges. We had to go through their clinical governance, which meant that their stringent processes going to the medical directorate boards back and forth to prove that we were a safe, efficient and managed risk service. We had to evidence that our staff was trained to the standard of an NHS contract. So safeguarding had to be at level 2, even potentially level 3. So we had to do a lot of evidence in the beginning to even before they'd open the doors. Then when they did, we had some technical issues. Obviously interoperability doesn't exist. So it was a case of the ambulance service would look at their category Ps 3 and 4 and then send them directly via a telephone to us. That in itself didn't give them confidence in the early days because it was a manual process that they were going through their stack of their queues. So we was on average getting 3 calls per month in 2019. We continue to work with them on a monthly basis to look at different ways of how we could get access to the ARC and our responder and lift service. We are now up to around 130 calls per month, and that has given our patients in Lancashire access to a free falls and lift service via the ambulance service, whether they have telecare or not. The outcomes has been that we have been provided a good governance structure in our responder service. It has also given outcomes for patients. We have improved access times. Our average response time is 24 minutes, and that's been consistent year on and month on. 94% of our responders are there within 45 minutes. It has also given benefits to the ambulance service. They have worked with us so much closely now that they give us access to their clinical hub, which means our responders at the scene can actually, if they're a little unsure or need some more reassurance whether it's safe to lift that patient, they can contact the clinical hub and speak to clinicians directly who can guide them through that. So the outcomes have been very good for patients. It's been also really good for our staff. It has really motivated them. They're already a fantastic service and they're already dedicated, but now having this direct contact with the paramedics and with the scene with the patients has given much more confidence. They absolutely love doing this part of the service. The ambulance service are now very good working in collaboration, and during pandemic, on our regular monthly meetings, we come up with different innovative ways that we could improve access. So for example, the ambulance process is that if somebody's been on the floor for 6 hours, then it automatically means that they're conveyed to A&E, which it means that they're actually then admitted. So in turn, that was our process. There was no point of sending a responder if somebody had been on the floor for 6 hours because it needed to go directly to the ambulance. We negotiated with the ambulance service and we agreed that we would send a responder who would assess the situation and then contact the clinical hub. That increased our success in successful lifts by about 20 to 30%. So overall, it's been a very positive experience for both our patients, staff and the ambulance service, and the demand on A&E. Okay.
Thank you very much for Joanne. And moving on to our next guest to come up. So the Tech Hero Award, I'm sure you enjoyed hearing around Sunderland's experience and hearing from Paul. If I can ask Paul to come and join us and just say a few words on his thoughts about the service, his challenges, etc.
Hello. I'm Paul and I work for Sunderland Care and Support, the tech team. I will be reading from notes. And we provide, I install and develop assistive technology enabled care. So I am actually an installer, I'm not a manager. We've worked all the way through COVID from day one up till now. We work with adults and children and we work with a broad range of clients. The age and well community, people with learning disabilities, for example. And what we have to have is the support and belief from our managers, from the management team, that allowed us to apply our assistive tech in a creative way. And you absolutely have to believe in what you're doing. These are key. Family engagement is absolutely vital. We must listen carefully and patiently to the family and lead them gently into a different way of care with technology. We use OT assessments and MDTs with the family, the installation team and other disciplines as necessary in complex cases so that we can find the right possible solutions for the people that we're working with. We have now 2 dedicated OTs working with us in support. The OTs already really have the knowledge of what they need to do to enable the support and care. They just need the technical know-how of what the art of the possible is. Luckily, I'm allowed a lot of time from the manager to research and continually improve the assistive technology that we can offer. There's not many pages. And we don't just install the assistive technology and then disappear. We have a program of aftercare, continual reassessment from the OTs and from ourselves. Is the technology working? Is it doing what we expect it to do? What are the outcomes? And the families do tell us that they feel like we have an arm around them all the time. We often install in stages, so we don't overwhelm the family with a load of technology. This is all brand new to them. We don't want to go in with all the bells and whistles. We'll do a little bit, we'll get the confidence, and we'll move on to the next part of the install. We really learn from every application or installation, and we look at how we could do things better. What did we learn? Because of course no two people are the same, no two installations, no two care plans, support plans are the same. And we use case studies to continually improve how we deliver the assistive technology. Barriers, a couple of barriers sometimes. There's the fear of technology. We often hear families or family members say, oh, I don't know anything about technology, but they really do. You know, they're on Facebook, they have Alexas and things like that. It's just very easy to say, oh, no, nothing, I don't know anything about technology, you're wasting your time. But it's surprising how fast they come on board. A lot of installations actually require no interaction at all from the end user. It might just be a sensor or a few sensors around the house so that families know that their grandfather or the mother or father is actually moving around the area. So it can be something as simple as that. The cared for often don't realise the stuff is in there. They look at it and go, oh, that's nice, and then just forget about it. And the other barrier would probably be, from our point of view, not understanding the requirements. So we don't get everything right first time, but we can usually rectify along the way. And the other barrier would be that families not engaging, which fortunately is really rare. That was probably the biggest surprise for me, that families do want us in the houses to help them. Not everybody wants carers 4 times a day. They'd rather have a little bit of technology that can help them. That's me.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. That's excellent. Some really good tips there as well. You know, thinking about the outcomes, thinking about individuals, getting them as part of the process, and also learning and not necessarily thinking it's all got to be right first time. It's how do we learn from people and for the next time. So finally, can I move on to our Transformation Award? So can I ask Jason Martin to come up and talk about Essex County Council working with Millbrook and Provide. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm without notes and I can't remember what time I got in this morning, so please be gentle. Was it? Okay, thanks. Well, I'm Jason Martin, I'm the Director of Tech Transformation, Millbrook Healthcare, and about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, we were awarded the contract to supply CareTech county-wide into Essex. When I say we, it was a consortium bid. It was awarded in 2 lots. Lot 1 was Millbrook, and we are the fulfilment partner, and also we're also responsible for culture change, benefits realisation, and then Provide CIC are the monitoring and response partners. So it was where do we start? One of the challenges was I think with COVID. The awarding of the contract was delayed. However, the start date, the mobilisation, was fixed. Therefore, we had about 3 months to find a depot, get sorted out, get vans, do all the things you've got to do when you win a new contract. And also in that time as well, we've got to engage with practitioners because the process was changing fundamentally. There was CareTech within Essex was done in a very fragmented way. There was different care lines and all sorts. So all of that was being brought into one place. So actually getting hold of prescribers and teaching them about the new process and getting them on board, I think was certainly a challenge, especially in COVID as well. Obviously we were teams meetings, and everybody loves teams meetings, don't they? So you know, to try and change culture and to educate a whole workforce, 2,000 odd people, you know, on a whole new process, certainly was a challenge. I think the other challenge was there was about 4 other transformation projects within adult social care. So there was a lot of survey fatigue. People were just fed up with getting emails saying, please fill this survey in. So actually getting the pulse of the workforce was quite difficult initially. One of the things that we promised we'd do as part of the bid is to innovate. And one of those points of innovation was we have an AI-driven survey tool that means that the prescriber doesn't have to go through 60-odd statements, 60-odd questions. The AI decides what questions it's going to ask, and you end up with lots of really good insights out of the back of it. So it just sped the whole process up for the prescriber, and that helps with our engagement. I think other challenges. The time was the main challenge. I think just the teams, the apathy around teams, trying to change culture in teams was very, very difficult. We're also implementing a brand new benefits realization methodology, so it was deemed to be more for the prescriber to do at a time when prescribers are very stressed. There's lots going on, COVID pressures, etc., etc. So, yeah, very pleased with that. I think takeaways for me is engage early with the prescribing team. We got out there very, very early and co-produced. It's a word that you hear a lot, but it was really important that we got lots of frontline prescribers on into that co-production panel to make sure that it was going to work at the end of it, and they was going to get some buy-in. So yeah, I think, and also training. So training was over Teams. But we quite quickly developed an e-learning, and the idea is that then people can dip in and out. So I think that's me. I can't think of anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. Well done for remembering what I asked you to come up here for, which is good. So now we move on to a few questions. So I've got a few prepared ones already to help all of you to think of things. So keep thinking, because I won't keep you here forever, but it'd be good to at least get questions for all of our speakers. So first question is over to Lisa from Astroline. If I can expand it on my iPad, yeah. So what do you consider to be the greatest challenge to the workforce, paid or unpaid, in terms of upskilling and training?
Take my ears off first if I can, so I don't have to listen to myself. Can everyone hear me? I think some of the challenges, and I think it goes across not only the workforce but also customers as well, is taking away the mystery and some of the some of the challenges and the barriers that people put up in front of them about what tech is. And it's about focusing on that as a service rather than the technology itself. So I think in terms of upskilling our teams, I think it's about getting that message over to them, for them to get then over to customers. Within our monitoring centre, I'm very keen on getting the team to understand that the calls that they take, they actually can influence maybe some of the more the devices and the sensors that are out there to help support people. And it's getting that joined up conversation, which I think is a challenge for us, and that's going to be something we'll work on. But I think it's also about, as the sensors are coming in and becoming more and more mainstream, our teams need to understand what that data is doing and what it's saying, and how to interpret that data, I think, is a very different skill set. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing about how we upskill people to meet those challenges.
Thank you. Next up, Joanne. Just checking. So in terms of the Progress Lifeline service, how is the service linking into the Urgent Care Response Initiative, and what benefits have you seen from working in there?
So at the moment, because we have access to the clinical hub by NLAS, we've not linked into the urgent responders yet, but it's something that we're really excited about and we've learnt more about in the last 2 days. So it will be another pathway referral which we'll be able to introduce to support the responders at the scene. So we're going to just make touch, we've got it on our doorstep in Warrington, so we're going to make in touch with Caroline and start that process.
Thank you. So to Jason, so how do you ensure that those that are referring into the service, how do you get them to think tech first through their assessment process? in general, people feel that it feels like an afterthought or an add-on. So how have you actually embedded it so it is right up there in their thinking?
I think certainly during COVID, it's we've done our best to change the culture. Case studies, evidence, outcomes-based evidence, I think is absolutely vital. I think prescribers, practitioners are in this game to make people's lives better and not necessarily interested in benefits realisation per se. So yeah, definitely more case studies.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think thinking about those personas, that's the thing that really resonates. I think we can all think about somebody in our personal or professional lives and really think about that story. How does it help workers at that conference to think, actually, I've got somebody like that just like on my caseload, or I came across somebody last week, and they're not thinking about exactly, well, which widgets do they give them. It was actually, what do we achieve with that person, and therefore what might work. A question for Paul. I guess in the work that you've described, Paul, what else or what more would you feel you need from your leaders to help you to continue doing what you're doing so well?
In a support way, are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm actually a very lucky lad because I get 100% support. I'm very creative by nature anyway, so I do come up with some weird things that I take to my manager and say, I want to do this, and he goes, oh God, really? And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And when they do, it's wonderful, and when they don't, maybe they'll do for somebody else. But it sounds really, really cheesy. I could not ask for more support than I get. And that's
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to the audience, unless you keep adding these things in whilst I'm trying to talk to you. So anybody want to be brave and ask a question live with a mic that we've got going around? I might have to pick on people if we don't. I've got a few people in the crowd. Thank you, Joe.
I haven't actually thought of a question. I'm going to have to think of one really quickly. So I suppose myself and Lisa were reflecting earlier on about the award win, and maybe just if you could all just each say, what does it mean to the team back at the office, back at base, who are holding the fort at the moment? What does winning this award mean to those guys? If you could give us a sense of that.
Right. Who wants to go first? Oh, we'll go this way down the row. Yeah, we're going to start with Jason.
Same time as I did this morning. No, I think it just ratifies the ideas that we had in our bid for Essex, and that's become now almost a product that we're going to take into other local authorities. So yeah, I think ratification of the good ideas that we had, and they're live, they work, and we're winners.
And on to you, Paul.
I think it's fantastic. It's all right, I'm here getting the award, but it's really the team who get the award. We've got some youngsters working with us, and when take a nice shiny bit of glass back to them, they're going to be able to sort of say, oh well, look, there's a start. We've actually won something, what can we do next? We have a really, really close, tight team, and I think part of that is through working through the pandemic. We've naturally become more supportive and protective of each other, and I think it'll be a massive thing for us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul. Lisa?
Yes, so for me, I think it's recognition. I think we all sit here and just think it's just what we do. We do this day in and day out. And I know I've got a team of people back at the office and out and about in the community, and people here today who it's just what we do. And I think to get that recognition, especially from within the sector itself, it is something really special. So I'm going to be really proud to take that back and put that somewhere in our office and let people look at it. It's a heavy old beast. I mean, I must admit, I carried it back to the hotel last night and it was really heavy, but yeah, so I think it's recognition for them. They can't come to these events, so it's about me taking a little piece of it back to them.
Brilliant, thank you.
Around the nightclub.
David?
Yeah, I think it'll be echoing what other speakers have said, really. You know, you've got an esteemed panel of judges who've all looked at it from various different angles. It's a very competitive process because all of the entrants are really strong. But that recognition to think what we just think about in rolling up sleeves, getting on and doing stuff and sorting things out has actually been recognised by that broad panel.
Yeah. Recognition is a big one for the frontline staff, especially the responders, because they're out on their own. They're not heard up, it's individuals going, and sometimes they feel that they're not always part of the bigger picture. So I think for them to realise that it's been recognised, the work they do with the ambulance service will be greatly appreciated, but also recognition from the ambulance service. It will be really nice when we tell them and our commissioner that we've done this together as partnership in the true sense.
Great, thank you. And I think I would echo that. I think hopefully the experience and the fact that people are still smiling a little bit sitting up here after being told at short notice to come and say something will inspire you to go for an award next year. You know, there might well have been 18 shortlisted entries, but clearly there were 4 or 5 times as many that came through. Most of them quite right before the deadline, as if people have forgotten to do it. But I think what we're trying to see is how do we learn from that as an organisation, as a sector, so that we celebrate the success, we help people to then start things themselves. Would anybody like to raise a question? You don't have to. If you feel, oh, thank you.
Hi, I've got a question from P&A Consulting. I'm a small domiciliary care provider in Hampshire, and given as we know the high level of unallocated care packages at the moment, how can a care provider like myself supplement the services that we offer, as well as help reduce the burden on the public purse and support your programme?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real full I think that's a full recognition of the system approach to it, and we see technology playing a part in the response across that particular system. For yourself as a dom care provider in the county, where there are a number of ideas that we have in working in partnerships. So, for example, the work that we've done with another dom care provider within the county on wearable robotics technology, which I can tell you about later, was commissioned both by provider and commissioner, because there you've got a recognition that the providers are finding it difficult with the competitive nature of the marketplace to provide services. Conversely, there are pressures upon the commissioner to get the right services in place. So, yeah, I think tech is not just about a one-way street. Provision is key in it as well. We'll chat later.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to have a go? Oh, here we go. Now we're starting. Everyone's getting into it now. It's just.
Quick question for Lisa. Just talking about the hybrid approach that you took, how did you ensure that the team managers maintained team performance, productivity, core quality, whilst working from home against the standards that were set within the office?
So that was a really tricky one. That was really tricky because you've got to have a degree of trust when people are working from home anyway. And we have got some really good metrics in place. So the standard stuff that you would expect to see about in terms of wrap time, etc. We can measure that. We can see whether productivity actually increases at home or decreases in the office and which way round that works. For some people, they're more productive at home. For some people, they're more productive in the office. And we've been able to get down to that granular level of detail to understand who works best where. But it's not one size fits all. It's about having regular communication with people. It's about, I talked about that community. It's about really getting people to understand that they're still here delivering a service for people, and every single thing they do contributes to that service delivery. And keeping that community spirit when you've got some people at home, some in the office, that's the challenge. But that's how we try and do it. Do it through your normal metrics, but also create that everybody with a shared vision.
Thank you. I can see the people at the front are rapidly putting questions in, so you're going to bear with me to try and read them whilst you're doing it. So, I might actually ask Danny to put him on the spot to ask, because my app, I'm blocked by a bar that says ask a question, so I can't actually read what you said. So can I ask Danny at the front to ask a question?
Is it working?
Yep.
Yeah. It's one for Joanne. Thinking more from a GDPR perspective, working with the ambulance service, what challenges did you face, if any, especially those clients that are technically not your clients that you're attending as well?
Yeah, we did face challenges, obviously, and that was part of going through the governance framework. We have a data sharing agreement, but because it's a commissioned service, so they're not our customers, but they are Lancashire County Council in a sense, because they've commissioned that service with the ambulance service to work with us. But we did have a data sharing agreement that went back and forth. So we know it weren't straightforward. No. It definitely wasn't straightforward to deal with things like that. But it's a good question, yeah, and it's something that when we reflect now, look at it would have been something we would have approached very beginning. It's only when you get into a certain part of the process and somebody says, who's got the data sharing agreement and where does it sit with? Because it's a really good point. They're not, they actually are the ambulance patients. They're not LCCs and they're not ours, so, but we did work it through.
Brilliant, thank you. Any more? Oh, you're all eager to stretch your legs and have one last tour to see if you can get some pens and whatever else. Okay, no, we'll call it a day there. I think most importantly, thank you very much for your contributions. Can I ask you for one last round of applause for not only the panel, but I must say also for Alan Lowers from Visionable as our Leadership Award winner, who can't be with us today, but a round of applause for our ITEC 22 award winners.